Well, welcome to the Happy Software Resident Check webinar. We're really excited about this webinar here today. But before we get started, I would like to just go over a couple of housekeeping items. And so we're going to start off by just talking about how you submit questions. So we have everyone on mute because we don't want to have a lot of background sound, but we encourage you to ask questions. And so on your little go-to webinar item on the right-hand side, there is a section where you can go and you can ask questions, and if you submit them through there, we will be able to look at those and we'll try to get to them at the end of this webinar. If not, if we run out of time, because we started a little late here, we will answer them individually after the webinar. So please, we encourage you to ask questions. Just do so through the little go-to webinar question option on the right-hand side of your screen. We are also recording this webinar, so we're going to be providing you each with a link to this following the session, so that if you wanted to share it with your colleague or you wanted to go over it again, you certainly can do so. And so you'll get a link following this. And we are going to have a survey at the end. The survey is just so that we can better improve these going forward. So please fill that out as we're done. All right, so what are we here to talk about today? Well, we're it's myself. As many of you know me already, I'm Joe Panto. I'm the Director of PHA Sales here at MRI Software. I have Aaron on the phone, who you can hear. He is the Director of the Resident Check product that we're going to be talking about here that is now integrated into Housing Pro. And we have Ashley, who is the Solutions Architect for Resident Check, and she's going to take you through the actual web piece of this and demo that for you so that you can see that as well here today. So this is the team that's joining you. And so we're going to talk about integrated tenant screening, or integrated tenant screening solution. For those of you that may have been in on the Meet MRI webinar, or that may have talked with a sales rep or a support rep at the time of the Happy acquisition by MRI, you know, one of the things that we told you was the advantages of this acquisition was that we were going to be able to take advantage of cool new features and services that were offered by MRI that we'll now be able to offer to you as Happy Software users. And so this is the first of that. This is the first wave of those cool new features that you're going to get to take advantage of. And this is through the form of Resident Check. So this is a online screening service that allows you to do criminal and credit background checks. And we're very excited to let you know that it is now directly integrated into our Housing Pro 9.1 software. So for those of you that are using 9.1, you can now do these screenings with just a click of a button right in your Housing Pro system, whether you're looking at an applicant record or you're looking at an owner record. And for those of you that might be in one of our older product lines, like Housing Pro 8 or Housing Pro 9.0, you could still take advantage of it. You could do these screenings through the website. It's just not integrated directly into the system. And so we're going to show you a little bit of both of that. This is awesome because it's going to save you a whole heck of a lot of steps, because now you just are in the software doing the work, you hit a button and there's your report. And you're also now just using one service provider to provide you both the software and the background screening. And it's all in one platform, and not only are you able to quickly get to those reports, but then it's going to save those reports right in the Housing Pro system. So we're very excited about this, and we look forward to showing it here in a few moments. I am going to turn this over to Aaron for a moment, and he's going to talk a little bit about the agency benefits and the structure of this and the pricing, and then we're going to get into the demo itself.
Thank you, Joe. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope, since I can't see it, that right now we're looking at the agency benefits, and I want to start by talking about right in the middle of the circles that we have there are the certified criminal research providers. That is a real important value that we bring, Resident Check does, compared to a lot of the other national providers. A lot of the other tenant screening and background providers have a software solution, as we do, but we augment our software solution with a team of certified professional National Association of Professional Background Screeners. That's NAPBS. And it's that team that actually researches each and every one of the criminal records. And that is a very important value for the agency and a benefit for the agency, because that ensures that we do not have any false positives. If you're familiar with using a screening provider that just has a CPU to CPU solution and does not have a team that reviews those records, it's a very important piece, because leasing friction can be created when you get a false positive. You return a record that's not actually the individual. So the team of certified professional background screeners take a look and make sure that all required fields are there to match that, first name, a full middle name, a last name, any other kind of identification associated either with a driver's license or other government issued ID, to ensure that we have the right record. And that will lead to the first and top circle that we have of maximizing the occupancy and improving the efficiency. So when we're not creating leasing friction and getting false positives, then we have a chance to move in as many people as possible. And also, because the team is actually helping site personnel work through the various different items that might come up as we're verifying those records, going to increase the site personnel's efficiency, going to allow the team at Resident Check to actually take care of those items and follow up. And that leads to the circle down in the lower right-hand corner, minimizing the liability with the fair housing risk. Again, understanding that a lot of times at the site, there's frequent turnover in personnel and there's training associated with that. But with the Resident Check team, they are constant, and they will take care of and make sure that the criminal criteria and the property criteria that you've identified for your properties are uniformly applied, and thus lower your compliance risk and your fair housing risk. And say another thing about the property criteria as well, y'all probably have a set of property criteria that you're using now with your current screening provider, or you may want to review that with us, and we certainly have best practices and templates that we can review with you. Certainly in the end, you're going to want to make sure that you review that with legal counsel. We're not providing any kind of legal advice, but having that subject matter expertise in the industry and having best practice templates for starters and to review is certainly a benefit for the agency, and it minimizes that liability and the fair housing risk. And then I've already touched on the third item over in the left-hand corner, the relieving administrative burden. Again, that is all the various different items that the Resident Check team takes care of or helps your site personnel take care of. Last but not least in that would be things such as FACTA fraud alerts and adverse action letters. These are both things that come up that can cause leasing friction, and the consumer, the applicant, often has questions related to that. They may not be aware that they have a fraud alert on their credit, or they certainly may have questions related to why it is that they were declined. Again, the leasing friction that can be created from that, you don't have to have your site personnel handle that. The team at Resident Check will actually handle those situations and help those applicants through either unfreezing their FACTA fraud alert and or dealing with whatever misinformation they believe is potentially on their credit report or in their criminal background check. With that, we'll go to the next slide and talk about pricing. Very competitive pricing, very cost-effective pricing that Resident Check offers. $8 for the criminal and $8 for the credit. Now, I realize in the PHA space, the public housing and affordable space, that criminal background check is probably first and foremost, and may not be interested in the credit check. Just something to think about with the credit check is that does include eviction records, and it also includes bad housing debt. You may not be interested as much in the income, depending on the type of PHA that you're managing, but certainly any kind of information into previous housing debt or previous evictions may be of interest, and we could certainly discuss that, adding that to the criminal background check.
Great.
With that, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, no, I was going to say thank you for that, Aaron. I appreciate it. And I'm going to flip over now and actually show you guys this in action because we're really excited about how this works. What you are able to see now, for those of you that are 9.1, this should look familiar. This is the Housing Pro 9.1 dashboard. For those of you that are in 8 or 9, this is what the 9.1 system looks like. And the resident check piece is integrated into both the waiting list component and in occupancy. So depending on your internal process of when this particular type of screening takes place, you could do it either right on the applicant record or right on the tenant record, but it works the same either way. And so let's go over to occupancy, and we are going to go and select a tenant here. So we're going to say that we are working on Cheryl White. And when I'm on Cheryl White's record and I go into the household screen, what you'll notice is that there is now a new button up at the top right corner of the screen. This little resident check icon. And so when I'm working on these family members, now to go and do that screening, rather than having to go into a different system or do this type of work internally, you just click on this button and you say, all right, I want to go and search resident check. And so what it's going to do is it's going to bring up a little report setup option where you're able to go and select what report you want. And so there's a number of different types of screening options that you can have through Resident Check. We get all of it set up here for you in Housing Pro. You may have one, you may have multiples, but you select the type of report that you want. And you're also able to select who in the family you want to run this report on. So in this case, it looks like we have a head of household and then we have an other adult, probably an adult child, living in the home. If we wanted to do both of those, we could. We aren't able to do anyone under the age of 18, any of the youths here. But what we would do is we'd select who we want and we would say run. And in just a couple of seconds, 10, 15 seconds here, it's going to go and it's going to connect to Resident Check. It's going to do the, in this case, the InstaSearch, and it's going to pull up the report right here on screen. I mean, it truly couldn't be easier. And so we'll give it here a moment and we'll see this pop up. Now, keep in mind, not only are we going to run this report, but the software is also going to archive this report in Housing Pro so that if you wanted to go back and look at it later, you're going to have every single report that you've ever run right on those applicant or tenant records. And so in this case, you can see it went and it ran the report, tells us that that it's done. You can see the two different applicants here and information. Now, this is all just sample data that we're using here. And it gives us a recommendation. And I'm going to let Ashley speak more on how the recommendations work and how this AccuScore piece works here momentarily. But you can see that this report now is just right there on screen. We've never left Housing Pro. And we can see any of the information here that has now been brought into Housing Pro, what type of report we did, the date that it was run, the status of it, and the decision. Now, sometimes you may end up doing background checks that take a little bit more than just an instant retrieval, where county records may have to be gone and take a look at it and stuff like that. So there are times where the decision will, the status will be pending. And so until this is reviewed, so if we were all done with this, we can mark it as reviewed and say done. Until it's reviewed, it's going to continue, the software is going to continue to remind you to go back and check this to see if the status has been updated. And I'll show you where that's done here momentarily. Now, once that report has been done, you'll see there's a new section now on the household screen that says, here's my report history. So we did it on August 15th. It was an InstaSearch. It was denied, and the status is complete. if I ever wanted to go look at it again, all I do is click the little arrow here, and it's going to bring me right back into that report so that I can go and I can see that screen in that report at any time. So not only do we have access to it, but we're going to have access to all the historical ones as well. Now, as I had mentioned, in the event that you had to wait momentarily for that report to generate because of additional background work that was being done, you'll see right here on the occupancy dashboard, we now have an unreviewed resident check reports section. And there's a little 3 here, and so much like any of the other menus, what we would be able to do is we'd see all of those that were unreviewed. I can go and I can click into these individually now to go and see those reports, and if they're ready, then I can go and review them, and then they're going to fall off my list of things to worry about. Now, the same thing holds true over in waiting lists, and we don't actually have to go and run the report, but I'd like to show you where it is. So if we come over here, and we're now looking at our applicants, same deal. We would go into an applicant record. All of the family members and stuff would be listed here, and we would then be able to do the exact same thing. We would just hit search resident check, and it would go and run that report. And keep in mind, as Aaron said, you're only paying for the screenings you perform. So if just because you have resident check and just because you have applicants that might be moving from waiting list over to occupancy, but for some other reason they were denied before you did that screening, you don't have to pay for those. You're only paying for those screenings that are actually completed, and so you can pick or choose those that need to get done because they've made it that far along in the process. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over now to Ashley, who's going to talk more about the scoring technique and show you a little bit of this from the web perspective.
All right, so here I just pulled up an applicant, Herman, so this is the resident check website. You can use it on any device, any browser. It's browser agnostic. And so from here, I can see a summary, which is what you just saw in the other screen. But so this person has been accepted with an additional deposit, and they've scored a 50.2. What the AccuScore model means is this is the percentage chance we think this person might go delinquent over the next 24 months. And so this person kind of falls in the middle here. You could have it list out specific conditions, maybe they need to pay with certified funds, or maybe you want to list out the exact deposit amount that you want them to be able to pay with. Either way, we can have it listed that out here. Now I'm going to go to view the full report so I can get some deeper information here. Now the top couple sections are just information we've already entered for this applicant, so this is all what comes over from Happy. The next section here is the Social Security number verification or identity verification. So this will match the name, address, and social to determine if there could be any fraudulent activity. And text would appear here with a warning. It could include alias names, credit bureau alerts. This could include alerts they would have put on themselves, so they are contacted when this gets run, or an alert placed by the credit bureau, like I said, which could mean the file was frozen, there's fraudulent information, maybe law enforcement has directed an alert. And if it's a consumer alert consistent with the FACT Act, then we can actually verify that identity for you, and we'll call them and clear the alert without anyone on the property having to do anything. So here are all the cleared alerts. The next section is the scoring recommendation. So this person scores solely based on their credit. If there were any other additional factors, those would be listed out here. And I will show you another application with a criminal record so you can see what that looks like as well. I'll keep going. So they have no criminal, sex offender. And then we have our telecheck history here. So this will be the check writing. We'll show if they have an outstanding bad check, and we can add this to the scoring criteria. We can have it show that they need to pay with certified funds too. No eviction record. And then the next section is going to be the credit report. So we use Experian, and this area includes the profile summary, previous addresses, employers, public records, where civil judgments, bankruptcies, and tax liens might be listed. These could all potentially be scored using the AccuScore model. Could be just for their existence, or we could have parameters around the date range or balance amount or the count, like you might permit one tax lien but not two. And then the next area here will list individual credit accounts. It'll list open dates, status dates, balances, conditions. The blue indicates something is derogatory, and the housing debt is in red. And this can also be restricted by account, length of time, balance, etc. And then below that, we just have previous inquiries. So that's everything covered in the full report. I do want to pull up another example here. So we have Diane. So right on the summary page, you can see that there's a criminal record present and there's an eviction record present. So they're in the red, and we're going to go and view the full report here. And I'll scroll down to the criminal record so we can take a look at that. So when there is a criminal record, the full details will show, including jurisdiction, offense type, date, sentence, and when there is a criminal record, we will wait with guidelines. So for example, say like drug possession, the community standards might say possession is okay, but distribution is not, or a certain number of ounces are allowed. For example, in Cuyahoga, Ohio, this could be listed as like a Class B misdemeanor, but maybe in Texas this could be listed as something not on an ABC scale. So we want to take out the guesswork of how to weigh those against each other, take out the risk of fair housing, and make that determination for you, ensuring that all applicants are screened uniformly. And we also don't return possible hits where the identity is in question, and we have the licensed PI and staff that certifies these results. And this person also has an eviction record, so I'll pull that up here. One other thing I wanted to mention is that with every application, we provide you with this adverse action letter. So this will show you what the decision was, what factors went into this decision, and who they should contact with any questions or disputes. So that way they're not contacting you at the property level. All right, now if I go back to my home page here, you can always run an application from within Resident Check 2. Your apps will also be stored here, but I also can run a number of reports out of the system. So here is a list of the AccuScore reports that we offer, and I've already went ahead and run a few so that way I can show you what these look like. So here is the AccuScore range report by region. So this is divided up by types of properties as well, just letting you know where everybody is falling on that AccuScore range. The next report I ran is the denial factors. So this will show you where everybody is being denied the most for. And then we also have this denial detail report, which will list out exactly each application and the denial criteria and the rent-to-income ratio. And then we have this override report just showing you any overrides that have been completed. A couple other reports I just want to talk about too. We also have this what if decision report. What this will do is, you can say, okay, what if I change my criteria to this? How many people would have actually been approved or denied based on that switch? So that way you can see if any changes or anything need to be made to how you set up the scoring criteria. All right, so that is everything I have on my end now. So I will pass the ball back.
Sure. And Ashley, there's a couple of questions that have come through that maybe you can answer at this point. So someone asked, what's the basis for the denial? How is the AccuScore figured out? Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, so it's totally up to you, honestly. If you want it to be based on the criminal records or, all these things will be going into this. Let me actually pull up again this other report here that lists out exactly the scoring recommendation. So these are all the criteria that will go into this recommendation. So this person that we had pulled up earlier, this person was accepted with condition based on the credit score because they didn't have any of these other factors coming into play. But any other of these things that you want to go into the score, we can add. Hopefully that answers your question. Maybe Aaron or somebody would like to elaborate even more, but
yeah, feel free to ask questions.
Certainly, I can add a little bit more to the AccuScore. Just to be clear, it's a very important piece of the scoring, particularly on the credit side. So we don't just use the credit score or FICO score that comes back from the credit. The AccuScore model takes other things into consideration that Ashley's touched on to give you a better overall prediction of whether or not the tenant is going to pay and pay on time. And those are things such as housing debt and evictions and other data analysis that we've done over the years in the industry to give a more accurate score. And we think it's easiest and best to express that in the percentage of chance that they are going to actually default in the next 24 months. And we have best practices for those as well, in which we say if they have a score that's 39 or below, then we think that that's a good approval range. And then we have a range for when it would be good to collect an extra deposit. And then finally when the risk is just too high, where we recommend that they be denied for those credit factors. Again, on the criminal side, that really comes down to the property criteria. And certainly it's not a sliding scale. It's more a binary decision, which is simply what are the criteria in the criminal records associated with that. And if they have any of those, then they're going to automatically fail. In other words, we're going to add 100 points to their score, and that's going to take them all the way to the end, if you will, of the AccuScore range, which is 100%. And that would, from a best practices perspective, lead to the denial.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. All right. So if there are other questions, feel free to submit them through the GoToWebinar questions section over on the right-hand side of your screen. If not, that's really the gist of our presentation. We wanted to show you how it worked both from a web perspective and from the really cool integration directly into Housing Pro. You can certainly send us questions following this webinar, and you can reach out to sales@happysoftware.com to get a quote or to get additional information. And as I had mentioned, we are going to be sending out this webinar to everybody so that you can go and you can share with colleagues or review it again if necessary. I do want to end with just a little bit of follow-up here on some other events that we have coming up. We are all over the place. We're doing a lot of conferences over the month of August and September, so if you happen to be in or around these areas, please feel free and stop by our booth and see us. Starting with the Texas Housing Association in August and going through to the actually end of October, where we're going to be at the National NARO out in Atlanta. So please, if you're around, stop by and say hello. We'll be happy to talk with you more about Housing Pro or MRI or Resident Check while you're there. And then also like to let everyone know that we have our International Users Conference coming up in October in Atlanta. It's huge. For those of you that have attended our Happy Users Conferences in the past, this is that 4 or 5 times over, but it's really awesome. It's going to be a great way to meet MRI. It's a great way to see the faces that you already know at Happy. You're going to get to see some exciting stuff coming from MRI Public Housing, and there will be sessions specific to Housing Pro and Assistance Check and the Happy line of products. So we encourage you to check it out and see if you can join us. You can reach out to sales about this as well, and we'll be happy to help you get registered. So that's it for today. If there's any other questions, let us know. We really thank you for joining us today. And I would encourage you to fill out the quick survey following this session and give us the feedback on how this went and things that you'd like to see from us in the future. Thanks again. Take care.